for the going forward, with the new way of handling label stacks and SPLs and so on, maybe we shouldn't use GAL. So we don't deprecate GAL. You still use GAL, but when you use GAL by itself only, the way it's currently used. In new applications, if you want to put data after bottom of stack, you use a different way of doing it.
Chrissy, the only question I've got is about this question about because there's no length you mentioned, but we did at one time have ACH TLVs, I think they were called, and I don't think anybody ever used them, and they were kind of they were discussed, and I think they were defined, but they weren't ever used.
Yeah,
so in theory,
Matt, you're correct, but there is also in the same message something called a guess message that also doesn't have a length.
Yeah, I think that was just that's whatever protocol you're carrying in the control channel. So that might be a BFD packet, right? LSP ping or something. So that's protocol specific. So you kind of from the context of what the protocol is, either to look at something in the protocol to know how large the packet is, or it's fixed length.
But this
because the ACH tells you that.
That means that everyone that is trying to put something down this with data after the boss need to understand the GAL as it were from the beginning.
Well, you have to understand the ACH, yeah. I mean, you have to understand the GAL to know that GAL means pointing to it, means that there's an ACH follows, and then you have to be able to interpret the ACH in order to know what the payload is.
So first of all, Matthew, it wasn't me that raised this in the first place. It was Stuart. And the second thing is, I think what Loa is saying is that every application has to say, this is how I'm going to use the ACH. And we can step back and say, let's just do this in a way that's not dependent on which protocol is using ACH. So I think that's the proposal that Stuart was going for.
So I'm sorry I'm late, but I've just heard I just joined and heard my name.
Okay, so
wait a minute now. We haven't started the meeting yet.
Okay.
I did start the recording, Loa, so to capture the discussion, just to let everybody.
Okay, but Tarek, you can take it from here now and start the meeting.
Yeah, I think we can continue the discussion. It's a valuable one. I just want to let everybody know that we're recording.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask a question on the write-up that you have on the screen. You are suggesting the GAL to be used for indication of the auxiliary data.
He's not suggesting.
I
think he's giving an example here that let's say that we have an FAA. Can you guys see my highlighting when I highlight?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So there's an FAI style label that 2 flags with implicit data, 2 flags with in-stack data, 2 flags saying there's data after BOS. There's a GAL. So the question that he wants to say is, how do I know where the ACH ends? And the question I raise on top of that question is, should we even be talking about GAL ACH in this context?
So you have no idea where the ACH ends unless, except under 2 conditions. One, it is the only thing in the packet, which was the original design assumption. So you would know from the packet length, for example, where it ended. Or the other circumstances under which where you would know how long it was is if it contained a length. But you could only understand where the length is if you understood the ACH type. And if you didn't understand the ACH type, you should discard the packet anyway.
Well, is that true, really? Because if I'm in the middle of the network and the data you have in the ACH is end to end. I can't discard it just
Oh,
because
right, no, sorry. If you have to process the ACH
Yes.
and you don't understand it, you should discard the packet.
Right.
But
So I have a point here that you have two flags that says there's data after BOS, and then
Yep.
there's also a gal label. Why do you need a gal label? Because the flags say that there's data after the BOS.
Right. So let me ask a question: I'm not sure whether gal is the right thing, but
Yeah.
you have to know when you do disposition that this thing is there in order to handle it properly. So if you got the flags, will the flags be available when you to you when you're doing bottom of stack processing?
I mean, that's why you're looking at bottom of stack processing. Yes.
If
So
if the FAI is at the bottom, yeah. If the
Sorry?
FAI is at the bottom, then it will
has to be.
be.
It has
Yeah.
to be at the bottom if there is something
Yeah.
you're going to have to dispose of.
It can be in multiple places, but it
Yeah,
has to be.
yes.
Right.
It can be in multiple places, but it must be
does
available
it have to be at the bottom? So my
Yeah.
point, if you're doing this hop by hop, then you might be in a position where, I mean, if you've got hop by hop data that you want to process after the bottom of stack, the FAI could be high up on the stack.
Yes.
And you're looking at that and saying, oh, there's stuff at the bottom. Now, the thing that you're saying, Stuart, if I understand you right, is as I'm processing this, as I'm popping labels on the stack,
Exactly.
if the FAI ever comes near the top, I mean, I think there might be a concern if it actually comes to the top, then if I pop it, I lose some valuable information. So do I push it back on? Or do I have multiple FAIs? So when this one goes, I know that there's another one that's.
Well, that depends on on the actions you want to take. The only
Yes.
point that I'm sticking on is when you get to the bottom of stack and you're about to look at the payload, you need to know what it is.
Yeah.
And so you have to have something down there that says, well, what it is. And that can either be a FEC or it could be a special label of some sort, or it can be
Which says this
your
data.
indicator.
Yeah, it's a new gal, right? And that's why I was highlighting this. That if you did have an indicator that says there's data after bottom of stack, that is your new gal. And to your point, what you're saying is you really should put that at the bottom of it. Should be the last label. So it's the new gal, but it can have more semantics and.
Well, I don't think it's the gal. I mean, I don't think we should call it gal unless it is a gal, right? But it's a new payload indication label or whatever we call it, right?
what you're talking about is a communication channel, isn't it?
Not necessarily.
Well, I'm not sure whether it is. You see, in the original concept, it was a communications channel. But I'm not sure in the way we are planning to evolve this, communications channel is the right term.
Okay.
It's
communication.
I
mean, sorry.
It's a superset. So it could include a communication channel, but it could be other things. It could be an end-to-end OAM indicator. It could be,
or it could be a block of data in its own right. It could be anything.
Exactly.
Channel was intended to go sort of through this and then up to some other processing engine, which is not quite the totality of what we have in mind.
Right. Yeah. So that's why I said the thing that we're talking about, data after bottom of stack, could include a communication channel.
Yes, it can be anything you like.
Yeah, and if you say that each one has its own type and length field, then you could do exactly anything you like. Yeah.
That means that.
By the way, when we talk about bottom of stack, by the way, I think you might want the concept of bottom of stack group, which is the set of labels that become the bottom of stack, because sometimes you can have a label that precedes the true bottom of stack label that is still the final sort of stage of processing.
Right. So, for example, if you had if you had exactly what Loa put down here, but instead of saying on top, this could be near the bottom, except because you have data in the stack. It's not actually the bottom stack, but it is effectively what you just said. It is
Right,
the
so
last label you'll process. Yeah.
Yeah, the last label, well, it's within the group of labels that you're going to
Right.
process before disposition.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
are we getting close to a situation where we say, okay, we can have a gal in the stack, but in that case you can't carry on any other information, or you can have the phi style of indicator, and in that case you can't have a gal.
Yeah, I agree with what you just said. So we leave GAL alone the way it is today. And in fact, I think Stuart had said a couple of times that GAL is never used on a user payload. It's only used for OEM or other things. And then if you actually want data after bottom of stack, we use an FAI style thing. And we redesigned that so it's TLV based from the get-go, and it could be TLV, it could be next header, whatever
Right.
people come up with.
Yep.
And it deals with the nibble problem and all of that. Yeah.
Right. So a word of warning around TLVs, right? We had TLVs in the ACH system and we got rid of them because people hated parsing them. So if we're going to put them back, let's be really, really sure that they are what we want to put back.
Sure. Yeah. But I mean, I think where we are today, as you said, if you don't understand the type of the ACH, you don't know where to even begin.
Right.
Whereas if we architected in a way that if you don't understand the type of ACH or type of data after bottom of stack, you know whether you are allowed to skip it or whether you pass it on to the next guy or you actually throw away the packet. So the 2-bit field that we had in IPv6 options, we might bring that here as well, or something so that you can do more intelligent parsing.
How do you know it's valid though? Because you have to combine a type that you understand with the length to know if this is actually valid or corrupted or whatever, or an attack.
Yeah. I mean, I am a bit worried in some of this discussion that we are moving away from the fundamentals of MPLS and sort of basically recreating IPv6 with short addresses. And I'm not sure that is what we should be doing.
So I think when you're after the bottom of stack, you have anyway moved away from MPLS. And all we're saying is that the label stack is signaling to you that there's, I mean, like the GAL used to do, maybe in an incomplete fashion. You're signaling that there's data after the bottom stack that, I mean, technically is payload, but is really not the payload. And the customer payload, if any, comes after that. And now you should be able to parse that data. And whether it's a TLV, whether it's something else, you need to be able to parse it. I just want to finish, Matthew, to your point, if the data after bottom of stack, the model equivalent to the ACH is corrupted, we're screwed anyway. We don't have checksums for any of this. If a label is corrupted, you're dead. So, and the problem is, so whether you have a TLV or whether you have something else, we generally assume that you don't have bit flips in this data. But I mean, if you want to come back to that, we can.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know that one of the, I kind of agree that we definitely shouldn't overload GAL in this with this, because there was a deliberate design decision not to create a generic forwarding indicator, if you like, with the GAL, and not to allow any old protocol to run under the GAL. There was like, it wasn't, I think I don't recall which RFC it is, but it says somewhere, it says the GACH shouldn't be used as a generic communication channel.
Is that what the G stands for? No, I'm kidding.
I believe it's 5586.
Yeah, probably one I wrote.
Now that did sort of get changed a little bit in the MPLS TP days, didn't it? Because didn't the ITU want to carry a regular communications channel over the ACH?
Yeah, there's like an IPCC or something over it, isn't
Yeah,
there?
And
DCN over it.
the original VCCV design was a PPP packet, wasn't it?
no.
Oh, what? I maybe misremember. I must be
No,
misremembering.
I think that what ITU wanted is they just wanted the code point in ACH type to do Ethernet OEM.
Yeah. Well, they also wanted it to run CLNS, I think.
Yeah, there's
on
a
their-
DC. I think there's a DCN code point so that you can run, or they wanted to run a DCN over it, so you could run a management channel.
Yeah.
Over it. Which but I wasn't quite. I don't think that's quite.
But that's not what the thing we were trying to ban was. We were trying to
No.
abolish some sophisticated protocol being run over the in the sort of pseudo-wire context, weren't we?
Yeah.
But to come back to this, I think if we have a flag that says there's data after bottom of stack, and the reason why you might have two is that you have one that says there's data after bottom of stack that's interesting for most hops or every hop, and another one that says this is really for only the final hop. So it's an end-to-end kind of data. But if we do have any, whether it's one or two or more flags indicating data after bottom stack, that sort of supersedes what the GAL would do. And so, I think, and I thought I just heard Matthew agreeing and Stuart agreed earlier, maybe we should stop talking about GAL in this context and say, we have an indicator that says there's data after bottom stack. Let's design that indicator from the get-go so it can be used with customer payload. It can be understood by people, whether it's TLV based or not. An intermediate router or an LER can say, I know what to do with this. If I don't understand it, I still know what to do with it because I've got 2 bits. However we design it, we can design it knowing everything we know till date and some of what we can see coming, and based on that say this is the format for the data after bottom of stack.
Okay.
How are you going to handle it if you don't understand it? Because I know for if you terminate an ASP, for example, and you have an ELI on it, if routers today that don't understand ELI, there are many implementations out there that will just chuck it away, which is the reason for all the complicated capability negotiation stuff we have in RSVP and the RGPs and things for that. So it's actually really difficult to make to design something that isn't going to get chucked away by somebody somewhere in the network if they don't understand it.
True.
Well, and you could argue that this is MPLS, right? You shouldn't be sending anything through this network that isn't understood by all of the elements of the LSP.
Yeah.
That's right. That's why you have to make sure you know.
Yeah.
But wait, hold on. So I think, Matthew, if you do design this right, you say, I have this flag that says there's data after the bottom of stack. To Stuart's point, you've already checked with the IGP that everyone along the path knows how to process it. But let's say it's a TLV structure, and we can come back to Stuart's argument why it shouldn't be that. Let's say it's a TLV structure. There could be a type that is not understood by a particular node, but they do understand that there is TLV-based data after bottom of stack, and then it says, okay, this set of TLVs must be understood and processed. This set of TLVs can be understood and ignored, and this set of TLVs can be understood and just transmitted forward.
Yeah,
so,
it'd be nice if...
so in some format, but the idea, so you're right, legacy routers that don't even understand these flags are going to have a hard time with this. But
they shouldn't be getting a packet with the flags on them.
Right, because you've done your homework. But yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean that dramatically simplifies the model if we require that all routers on path understand how to deal with these new features we're adding.
Kind
Right.
of, but it means they've got to do a bunch of control plane work too.
Sorry?
It kind of does, but but one of the, again, going back to the ELI
Yes.
case, it took years and years to standardize a solution for capability negotiation across all the different control planes we've got. And in the meantime, people were deploying ELI, and I know there's a lot of operators that have issues with different vendors do different things for negotiating ELI or making assumptions about the network. So you've got to basically have all your ducks in line for this to kind of be deployable. And so you've got to accept that if you're going to do this, you're going to have to have a control plane protocol that will do the negotiation. Or you just say don't deploy it, simply don't turn it on unless you know that the whole network has been upgraded.
Maybe we have something like a list of candidate requirements against the below the bottom of stack elements, because the one thing, also being involved a little bit in these hop by hop header extensions and IPv6, the one thing that really, in my opinion, is crucially important is when you are on the ingress to a particular maybe even segment or part of an MPLS network, you would like to be able to say, well, whatever the incoming packet has, I want to create a new context, which with the stack itself is very, very easy, right? Because it's implicit, right? So you know how to build the MPLS label stack so that whatever is below the point that you would like the hops to see is not going to be examined. Or examine the way you want, but that concept doesn't exist for the traditional extension headers in IPv6, right? So I would certainly love to be able to say here on this MPLS hop, I want to make sure that all or a subset of the extension headers that we want in MPLS are going to be not looked up until my counterpart on the other edge of my path undoes this.
So I think what's important is that this new architecture or this new format that we have for data after bottom of stack is understood by everyone on the path. But even after that, we could have extensions that come, and so a particular router may not know the extension that comes. And in that case, it should have a way of determining how it deals with that. And
Or the PE should have a way of determining that it shouldn't put it in there in the first place.
Well, it's one thing to negotiate. I know the new format of data after bottom of stack, and so that's almost like a 1-bit thing that you send out in the IGP.
Yep.
But if you have to say, oh, but let's, again, for simplicity, let's say it's TLVs. If you actually say, I support this subset of TLVs, and then you have to do this fancy thing where everyone has to say, okay, this is a subset of TLVs that that everyone on the path understands, and so I'm only going to send that for packets in this path. I think it's easier to say, I know the new format, and that's it, and then each TLV in the format says, I will tell you what to do with me if you understand me, if you don't understand me, and etc. So I don't know. We could one of those two, but to so to your point, Stuart, if you know that everyone understands the new format, but you're not sure because you don't have the details of exactly what they can process, but you have a way to say for each TLV, if you don't understand this, drop it, or if you don't understand this, just pass it on. I think that would be easier than to say for everyone, give me an entire list of TLVs you understand, and then
some and some, Kariti. Remember that the network changes slightly, so ECMP happens a different way, and suddenly the path doesn't work anymore.
Right. Well, yes. So you might have to actually, take the full set of, potential paths and say, oh, what all routers am I going to? But okay, there are two different problems. One
Yep.
is, do I want to signal, let's say in the IGP, that I do understand the new style of bottom of stack or data after bottom of stack and stop there? Or do you want to say, I understand the new style of data after bottom of stack, and these are the sub things that I understand, sub TLVs or whatever it is. And then whoever's doing the calculation, computation of the path has to actually take that into account. I think the former is easier, but but that means if you take the former approach, you're saying that I'm going to put something in each, again, let's call it a TLV, that says what to do if you don't understand it. And then the ECMP problem is layered on top of this. And so you'd have to, again, that becomes easier if you say each TLV can be understood or not understood by the routers, but I'm not going to send even any data after bottom of stack in this new format if every single possible ECMP path has routers that understand this. If any router doesn't understand on any possible path, then I'm not going to send it.
But I think this is somewhat different to what I said, and maybe if we up level it, right? So the thing I was saying is that we need to have a way, in the same way as we have for the stack, for somebody, creating or modifying an MPLS packet to know that some part in the lower part of the MPLS stack are guaranteed not to be looked upon until a particular node further down the path, like an HP, right? So you know that things don't only have to be, I don't care about it, but will not be parsed, right? Other than, skipping through them, right? So, and I think that's what I'm asking for, let's say, for the reference case being CSC, right? So I get customer MPLS packets that are even newer, have even more stuff, and I want to be able to make sure that my intermediate P nodes never even have to look at that stuff that comes in from the customer. What you're saying, I would translate into, for the stuff that I do know uses an encoding that, where the encoding needs to be understood, but not the semantic. I think my requirement would be to say that every node in my network needs to be able to ignore the stuff they don't want to act upon at line rate, in the same way as we're hoping also with, the more complex MPLS label stack things right now, right? We hope that.
So
yeah.
Torres, the way I understand what you're saying is you want a hierarchy of label stacks. And so far what we have is a hierarchy of labels in a single stack. So for example, kind of the way that you can have tunnels in IPv6 or in IP for that matter. And so I can say, I'm going to put on a new IP header on the customer packet, and the routers in my domain do not have to actually look at the IP header of the customer packet. They just deal with the IP header that I put on my ingress. And when I get to the egress of my domain, I pop that off, and then whoever's downstream can do the same thing.
You're talking about a particular solution.
I am talking about a solution only because I can't think in abstract.
Oh, but look at how is CSC done today? Forget about extension headers, just about the label stack.
So how is what done today?
CSC.
Carrier supporting carriers. Yeah. The problem is when we did carrier supporting carriers, we didn't talk about data after label stack after the end of stack.
No, let's forget about the after the label stack. Let's just first understand what are the expectations when we're doing something like CSC, right? We're getting a customer packet with some label stack that may have features in it that we don't even need to support on the carrier, right? And we do know that it doesn't matter what the features are in the label stack of the customer, because we will ignore it when we pass it through our network. True?
Yeah, you're just going to tunnel it across.
Yes.
It's not completely true, because if you if you did the ELI processing the way the ELI RFC says, you could look through the label stack and say, I'm going to, any non-special purpose label, I'm going to throw into my hash function. If I actually come across an ELI and I recognize the ELI, then I'm going to take the next label and actually process it. And this, maybe your network actually doesn't know about ELI, but maybe it does, and it will actually process, that the ELI that came from the customer. So
Right.
it's not true what you say, about carrier supporting carrier. When we were doing that, we didn't think of people really looking down the label stack. You just looked at the top label and maybe the next label. You really didn't go down the label stack. But you can today. And so there is nothing that says, oh, my carrier label stack is only this big, and then the rest of it was from the other carrier that I'm supporting.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, yes, I gave you a solution, but the reason for giving you a solution is, like I said, my brain is too small.
No. I think you're correctly
No.
pointing out that the newer extensions like ELI weren't, I think fully considered in their impact on solutions like CSC. I'm saying that even before, figuring out how to do this, solve the same problems with the extension headers, I think we should try to understand what is the most efficient way we would like to support going forward for a solution like CSC, so that we don't stumble across that problem, that the label stack from the customer it includes elements that might surprise us in our own network. And I think you're giving one solution, but I'm wondering, is that what you think is the most lightweight solution to solve the problem?
So I'll add one more thing to that, which is, back in the day, a label told you where to go. And, so RSCP had one label that basically said, this is the path. LDP had one label that said, this is the path. And today, even a single path may have multiple labels because we have label stacking for segment routing. So now your label stack becomes a much more complicated thing. If you say, I have one label that's an RSVP label and one label that's a service label and maybe one label or a few label group, as Stuart calls it, that says, this is some data that I need to process. Life was simpler, but now you say, I've got 5 labels that tell me what the path is. Then I have a label that tells me what my customer is and what my service is. And then to your point, I want to do carrier supporting carriers with that. I might need another label stack that says, oh, and this must pass through my network. And now we don't have a way to separate all that. So that's why I'm thinking, we actually have nested label stacks as opposed to just nested labels in a single stack, because, life has become a lot more complicated than when we started.
Right, but we certainly wouldn't want to have something like, after our service provider label stack and possible extension header, something more convoluted than, directly following with the customer label stack, right? So
I agreed.
Right. So, and I'm not sure if we can, how easy we can do this today, but certainly, that would be good to understand.
Yeah. And we have to make everyone start using Jumbo Friends, because we're going to put so much stuff in there. No, I'm kidding. I think it might be that if you were nesting, again, I'm going too much far into the solution, but if you were nesting label stacks, you might say your upper label stack must have a data after bottom of stack that says, after this is over, you're going to get another label stack, because otherwise you might think it's an IPv6 or IP packet.
Right. But so one of the things that I always felt really nasty was the whole duplication that happens on the Ingress Trust Edge, right? When you're looking at the customer data and you do know that some of the things you want to do transparently, right? And I think this is where Stuart's and our proposal comes in, that, when you do create your service provider label stack, you can point to an extension header that may be in a nested MPLS label stack extension header, right? So you don't need to duplicate it.
But in a way, you've just violated what you just said, that, you want to know that I'm not processing in my domain things that came from the other domain, because they may have, different interpretations, or they may have features I'm not using.
No, I'm
But,
explicitly creating a compressed version of what we do today in IP, which is we examine the customer packet and then we duplicate the information into a new header. And here with our proposal, we would, instead of duplicating it, have a pointer to that appropriate extension header in our new MPLS label stack, right? It's a more compact way and avoids that duplication.
I understand that, but I think that if you're worried about domains, it's actually better to duplicate. In general, I mean, if you're within one provider domain, rather than duplicating, you could have pointers. But if you're actually going across domains, same as if you put an IP header on top of an IP header, you carry the toss, whatever you call it, DSCP bits. You don't say, oh, here's a pointer to the inner IP header and go get the DSCP bits from there. Of course,
I think
DSCP bits are
so
really
it's not
short,
only saving, right? It's not, well, first of all, the question is, what is the benefit of duplicating instead of pointing in terms of security or so, right? And I would argue there is no difference for security.
It's not. Yeah. I don't think it's about security. It's about, in my domain, I might have certain meanings for certain things. On the edge, I will have that understanding that I understand what the other guy is sending, and by explicitly copying, I can actually copy and translate. So the same way that we translate DSCP bits, in the other domain, they have, 010 means voice. In my domain is 111, that means voice. I change it on the edge, nobody else has to know.
Oh, no,
if you have a pointer,
sure,
yeah. So if you have a pointer, then everyone has to know what the other domain is.
I have a question to you related to this discussion. Is it okay if I ask?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So going back to the use cases that we were considering, one of them was IOIM, and maybe checking the path latency at multiple transit hubs. If we ask ourselves, could there be a path, MPLS path, that is inter-carrier or maybe inter-domain, and then the user is interested in getting these, timestamps as the packet egresses ASBRs. Maybe it's a security issue that you expose the internals of the domain. So that's valid, but at least as the packet hops across ASBRs, we want to collect these timestamps. I'm just posing, I'm relating what you're discussing to the use cases that we have. I don't know if we have discussed that, or is it something that we want to
No,
tackle?
I actually wanted to get to that exact type of example, because I've dealt with that in the past already with multicast, not in the forwarding plane. We did that mtrace in the control plane, right? And obviously there were the service providers that said, we don't want to have visibility about the hops in our network. And then there were basically, customer SLAs that basically said, well, we need to be able to trace and see the hops for the service contract we have with the provider, right? So both options, I think, need to be supportable. And if you do have the case where aspects of the service provider path need to be made transparent to the customer, then obviously I do think that the pointer is the most easier option than copying down and on the egress copying up again the information, right? Because now you can actually do exactly that IOM in the target extension header, which is the one from the customer. Otherwise, you have copy down, copy up mechanisms on ingress and egress.
So I would actually at this point pop down a level to use your term, Torles, because I think if we figure out how to do this within one domain, we keep it in the back of our heads that whatever solution we make has to work across domains. Then we can come back and say, how do we solve it? Because this idea that should we use a GAL or should we stop using GAL if we do this? How do we organize the data after bottom of stack? All that has to be solved even within one domain. And the other part of it, which Stuart brought up, which is
Oh no, this is
signaling
perfectly
in the
fine. I
domain.
just wanted to remind
Yeah.
the fact that
Yes,
the pointers do have functionality that make it easy to do additional functions like the one described here.
Sure, but I think what we could do is let's solve the problem for one domain, keeping in mind that ultimately we do need to solve it for multiple domains, and then come back and say, okay, now how do we extend this across domains? So Tarek, I would say also maybe we can take your problem up, your suggestion up after we do one domain, and then we sort of bubble it up.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you.
I do want to move forward in Loa's little document here. So he had these questions: in which order do the in-stack data appear? And I think that's definitely needs to be solved. In which order does the data after bottom stack appear? I think that's maybe a little bit easier because the in-stack data, I think of it as, for those of you who know ASICs, I think of it as VLIW, very long instruction words, where essentially you want to encode in bits what you do rather than have a full-blown TLV structure and stuff like that. The data after bottom of stack may be a little freer because you're not limited to 4 bytes or 8 bytes, and you don't have this bottom of stack bit that you have to respect. But so I think there's two different things. How do you recognize what these different fields are for in-stack data and for data after bottom of stack? And the second is, in which order do they appear? And I'm going to ignore question 4 if we actually say, look, we're not taking GAL forward. And question 5 is then implicitly answered when the packet is, you wrote compiled, but, or actually you put an L before the I and after the I. But I guess you meant processed, Loa? When the packet is compiled and there is no GAL, how can we place the data after the bottom of stack immediately after bottom of stack? When it's created, maybe you mean created. Okay.
I meant created, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think once we decide how we put the data after bottom stack and what format it takes, and do we use TLVs, do we use some other such thing, we can also answer this question better at that point.
I think the point is that you need the indicator at the bottom of stack, right? Or you need that indicator when the packet reaches the egress. I think that's what.
Right. That or as Stuart calls it, the indicator group. Yeah, the label group.
But I don't agree that it's the GAL. So I think it was mentioned multiple times. It's something a new indicator, but not the GAL.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so we need to do some cleanup to this text.
Yeah. And then Loa said we should be careful, and Kiriti had a point here. So I took the text from the current from the FAI document, put it here, but it's incomplete. It basically says we need a criterion for what you put in the what I call PLFAD, which is after bottom of stack payload FAD, and the in stack. So we need a strong criterion for what you put in stack and what you put after bottom of stack. and in an update to the FAI document, I will try to enunciate that better. And then in stack data, we can't make it arbitrarily long. So a rule of thumb that Laura suggested is in stack data field should be no longer than 4 bytes. And I just want to clarify that's per indicator flag, although several flags may share a 4-octet field. And maybe the way to think of that is it's not a bit, but it's a flag. And then, so for example, in the current instantiation of the FAI document, EG is actually not 2 bits, but it's a 2-bit flag. And so they could share a 4-octet field. But I think the high order bit here is in stack data should be very parsimonious. So, and then yeah, bit 23 should be sacrosanct. And then this comes back to the GAL question. So I think that's, we need to, I think it would be helpful to make a decision here and then, write that down and then move forward from there.
So what decision do you want to make?
I want to essentially say we're going to redesign the data after bottom of stack and not reuse GAL for that. GAL remains as is. It's, the current use is you put a GAL label and you then say everything that we had already done that should continue. You have an ACH with it and you understand how to process the ACH. But if you want to combine,
change the pounds and ounces.
So sorry, is someone saying something? Stuart?
So sorry, someone interrupted me here. So
Okay,
I didn't.
Yeah, that's okay.
Kiriti, just for clarification,
yeah,
you are basically saying there might be one packet with a GAL in it. If it is,
Yep.
if it has one GAL in it, it will not have anything of the new type of what we're designing here.
yes.
Or it could have the new type, and in that case, it can't have the GAL.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. I think I can write that down as a decision.
Yeah. Okay. And then we can sort of agree. Hopefully, we can come to a consensus on that, and then I think we can.
So I have another question for you in that context. So let's assume, would we want to actually create a flag in the flag field of the PHY that actually is more or less equivalent to the GAL, but have the new type of encoding of the data?
Yes, so I think the question that we might want to say is, should it be a single flag saying there is stuff after bottom of stack, or should it be 2 flags saying there's stuff after bottom of stack that's interesting for every hop, and there's stuff after bottom of stack that is only interesting to the end point? That's, I think that's a question we should answer, but I think the answer to your question is yes, but whether it's 1 flag or 2, I think might be interesting, just so that intermediate nodes don't cross.
I think you have a good point there, that a end-to-end only flag is a good idea, so that you don't have to go and have a look down there unless you need to look down there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it actually multiply the flags, don't it?
Just 2. So it's either 1.
So what happens?
No,
it
doesn't. It doesn't multiply the flags in the packet, but it actually multiply the flags we need to specify.
So could you have 2 options in there, one of which is end to end and one of which is hop by hop?
Sure.
Just IOM by itself does that.
Right. So um, so supposing I've got the I don't know, the OAM end to end and the OAM hop by hop, right? How many
Right.
flags would I need to specify those two in this model?
Just two.
So one says there's OAM to be done here.
No,
One
actually, no. I actually prefer not to try to go for each thing. One says that there is data that is hop by hop. The other says there is data that is end to end. And if it happens to be, either 1, 0 or 1, 1, if the first bit that's hop by hop says there is data that's interesting hop by hop, you're going to go there anyway. Whether it's OAM or not, you'll find out some other way, whether it's TLV or something else.
Right.
But if it happens to be 0, 0 or 0, 1, if you're an intermediate guy, you say, I'm not even going there. The hop by hop bit is 0. So there's nothing interesting for me because I'm a transit.
Oh, right. So this is two bits that say whether or not you inspect below the bottom of stack,
Yes.
and under what circumstances. Yeah, that's a way of doing it. Yes.
That's exactly
So,
yeah.
wait a minute. So if you in that flag field has one flag that is end to end and another one that is hop to hop, hop by hop, how do you do it?
Well, you're going to have to go and look
bits.
anyway.
Yeah.
And then the structure at the end of stack is going to have to say whether this is a hop by hop option or an end to end option.
Right.
Okay. So I thought you were kind of stopping nodes from going down and really low.
Well, no. If the Cariti bits say there's nothing that should worry you in the middle of the packet, then you don't go down and look.
Yeah, exactly.
But one thing, Cariti, what about ECMP and stuff? Are we presumably we're just going to do ECMP defeat in the way that we always do for these things? So that
we could. I mean, if you're doing hop by hop OAM, presumably you would create you'd ECMP defeat, if that's what you want to call it, by an entropy label or something.
Yeah.
And so, because otherwise your OAM data will be complete nonsense.
Right.
Yeah, I think if you're doing something like OAM and you're trying to gather what is my end-to-end delay and what is the hop-by-hop delay, and then the path keeps wildly moving around, you're not going to get
Right.
meaningful
Yeah.
data.
No. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. ECMP is a really nice thing, but it can get very annoying for certain applications. So I think we have a path forward here. I mean, not that we have answered all of Loa's questions, but I think there are a few key things that hopefully we can make some progress on. One is stop talking about GAL and ACH. And Loa said he'll craft the words for that. And then we can tweak them as necessary and hopefully come to a consensus. The second thing is then we have to start designing what that data looks like after the end of stack.
Yep.
Whether it's a TLV structure, it's a next header structure, or it's something else, which I'm okay with. I understand your point, Stuart, about parsing all of that. But but there should be a structure, and essentially, if you're using modern style indicators, then you're not using GAL. The wording that Loa just sort of quickly said. If you're using GAL legacy, it's fine. It continues as is, but you don't mix the two.
That also opens up for extensions, changes to the GAL gas complex as is, as long as it not interfere what we're doing here.
Yeah, I'll let Stuart comment on that because
So what I'm
I'm not
saying is that if you want to make a benign change to the gal gas specifications,
Mhm.
we can do that within this scheme and only keep it on the gal side.
yeah. But I think it might be interesting to say freeze Galgash the way it is today and take the current application of Galgash and bring them to the new format. So we have a hop by hop beta or an end-to-end beta or however we decide to do the
Yeah, I
the
mean,
bottom stack.
you can keep the same indicators if you want, but I mean, basically, what you're doing is you're going to be vectoring through a piece of some sort of indicator, some sort of type. The code after that can be very similar, so it's probably better to do it again than it is to hack it to sort of work.
Yes, agreed. But I'm thinking that way, the issue that Loa just raised, maybe it doesn't come up because if you say, hey, the new way of doing Galgash is thus, and this is, it has the right things that people know exactly how long it is. There can be payload after it. With Galgash, it is payload after it. Life gets very complicated. I mean, actual customer payload. People know what bits to skip and what bits to process and what things to drop if they don't understand. If we do that in this new way, but we include what we currently have in the ACH, then any extensions that people want to do to Galgash, they can do in the new format. And then we say, we freeze Galgash, we don't deprecate it, we don't do anything with it, but you only use it for legacy applications. And I think that would make life easier. But, again, we need consensus for that. And probably more like working group consensus.
I kind of is a little bit uncomfortable about doing that day one because the new construct might not be fully compatible with what we have in GasGal. And we need to
Take some time.
Yeah, we need to verify that, okay, now we are fully compatible or we maybe have more functionality than we had in GalGash. Now we can freeze GalGash not to do any change, not to do anything. Yeah.
That would be more pragmatic. I agree.
Yeah.
And then I'll take as an action to try to put more wording around what we want for in-stack data, what kind of restrictions, the length restriction that Loa talks about, but also how do you what are the criteria for when you put it in the label stack and when you put it after the end of stack. And then we can, again, arm wrestle that and try to get to consensus on that.
Okay. So, Tarek, are you taking notes?
Note to Tarek.
Yeah, hi.
Take notes.
I was unmuting myself. I did not capture all the action items. That I know there is a editing that needs to be done to this text. Any other action items?
So the two ones that we have for now is Loa is going to come up with wording around the Galgash and that we're not going to extend it any further. We're not going to mix Galgash with the new thing. And the second is I'm going to write some wording for when we put data in the label stack versus after the label stack. And
Okay.
those are the two direct actions. And then
Mhm.
indirectly, I think we need to start thinking about how do we organize the data after bottom of stack to, Stuart's point about TLVs versus maybe other better, more easier ways to process this in the forwarding path.
Yeah. Okay. I have those captured.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Loa, even though you posted this half an hour before, we still made a lot of progress on this.
Yeah, it's a and we didn't care about the agenda I sent out. So I think we actually did more progress than I thought we would on this today. My intention was just to flag it and have a discussion next time, but we actually gone way beyond that.
Well, that's good, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah, here's your agenda.
The
Oh, we didn't do the comments on the consensus call.
no.
So that's this one?
Can you click on it? Yeah, that's the one we looked at last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So which is the consensus call? I thought that was it. Indicator text.
Wasn't it?
Okay.
Wasn't that where you were?
Yeah, okay. Let me go back. Yeah. Is it this one? Consensus text.
Yeah,
Okay.
might have.
So this is not the indicator is somewhere else.
I thought.
So maybe if I go back.
Go back to the previous agenda for August
last week?
12th. It should be there.
Yeah, this is Miad. Okay. Stop me if you see it.
No.
It's not here. Where did it go? Text for editing?
Text for editing was a name.
No, but that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Maybe let's look at it. Yeah, this was before the IETF. So I don't see it. I mean, we have that, and we have the 722 before the IETF and 812, which was last week. I don't know where it went. Hopefully, it's there somewhere.
I can't.
All right. I'm not going to start looking for it here. But I guess that was part of the agenda, was to get consensus on that. Oh, you sent it on the mailing list. That's what I remember. And I did send a reply to that. Okay, we can go back to the mailing list and look at that. Use cases, Tariq?
Yeah, there isn't much that was done since last time on this. We had presented last time a plan for some progress that the design team will do. We can go back and talk about it, but we're targeting some documents, the requirements document, some use cases document. So these are the ones that the requirements spec that Matthew will will embark on, or he has embarked already. And then we have the use case documents that we will we'll have to collaborate on.
Okay.
But since last time, we haven't done much. We're hoping the ETA will be, for the first draft, will be within 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I can help.
Sure.
And then, yeah, back to your agenda, Noah. So the requirement specification, Matthew, I don't know if you have any progress on that.
Just for Matthew first, this is what will be in a recurring item, so you can talk about it whenever you want. And if there are no news, you just say that there are no news.
Yeah, no news. I actually haven't received. I think I requested on the last call. If folks can send me any texts from drafts that they've written for solution drafts that is sort of framed in terms of requirements, that would be great. But I haven't received anything, so I'm just going to start putting together, I think, a skeleton for the draft, and then ping people on the list for input, and see if I can troll around some of the drafts myself for requirements.
So in that funny draft I wrote, there was a sort of a potted summary of all the documents as they were before we started this project, which may help steer you in the right direction for some of it.
Yeah, thank you.
And I might unicast anything that comes up that I think of. So if it's redundant, please forgive.
Yeah. I guess Matthew would rather have 2 copies than no copies.
Right. Hopefully.
More is always better, and I'll work out the overlap.
And you know where the delete function is.
Right. Delete word, delete paragraph.
Oh, whatever. Yeah.
Delete email.
I trust his integrity.
Yes. No, no, I wasn't questioning that.
No, nor was I suggesting you would.
Okay, so we actually spent quite a bit of time on this. Do you want to look at the ancillary data again, Loa?
Just show me and see if there is anything we need to say about that.
So we ratified the name after a few suggestions. Yeah, I think we need to decide this and then become a little more.
And also there's a meta question on that. Is it ancillary or auxiliary?
So that draft
that
draft I pointed at, which if I can remember what I called it, does give you the reason for picking one.
Auxiliary is helpful but not necessary. Ancillary, we'll have to go back to the draft, but I think we have to actually, to your point, Laura, there's 2 questions. I was looking at ancillary data as, I'm just calling it that for now. We need one term and we need to be using it consistently. But the other thing is it only for data that's after end of stack, or is it for both in stack and after end of stack, bottom of stack? I think we need to clarify that.
I have used it for.
So used it for both?
For all 3.
All
you go
3,
down,
okay.
go down.
Yeah. Right
there.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is correct, but this is the way I used it. So even if there is no actual data, I called it ancillary data.
That's fine. I think what we should do is when we define the term ancillary data or whatever term we pick, say it comes in these 3 formats or 3 types or 3 positions. And I think we've decided to exclude this. And I'm with you. I mean, we might write it down and say we're deliberately excluding this for now, so that people don't ask us about it.
So
Sure.
right, so ancillary designating activities and services that provide essential support to the functioning of a service, whereas auxiliary, helpful assistant, affording aid, rendering assistance. So I suggested that ancillary was the right one because you wouldn't have put it there unless it was essential, and the definitions come from the OED.
Yeah, no, I remember reading that and I agree with you. So I'm fine with ancillary data. And then, yeah, thanks for finding that and reading it back to me because my brain is too small.
My brain doesn't remember long enough, so.
Yes.
Tarek, did you capture this?
No, come again. What was the auxiliary and discussion?
They say that when we talk about data, either implicit in stack or after the boss, we use the term ancillary.
Yeah.
And in the stack, did we choose a term for it, or we don't need to choose a term for it in stack?
Well, whatever it is, whatever the name that goes after it, ancillary is the right qualifier because it talks about essential support as opposed to helpful support.
Okay, so that goes for the title of the project, right, as well? We had proposed last meeting.
Yeah, it's here.
MIAD, right, yeah. Okay, so yeah, ancillary is here, but then in the original form it was auxiliary. I'll take an action item to unify that.
And then I think it would be probably nice to have, I mean, we could use exactly these terms, but standardizing them so that we use the same. So this is sort of another qualifier. So there's ancillary that will always be there, and then there could be a qualifier in front that says where it is. So implicit, in stack, and after boss. But I don't know if there are better terms than that.
This is Alex. I actually completely agree that this should be a qualifier. It's not a type. The type of is irrespective of where you find it, but it's a qualifier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think we agreed on that. We called it positioning.
Yeah.
Where it is. I actually wrote the paragraph somewhere in a mail asking basically.
So isn't this the whole thing that we were just looking at?
No.
I mean, there were questions here. Okay. Yes, but there is a paragraph here as well. This paragraph, and then this potential fourth.
But that shouldn't say types.
It should say positioning. Yeah.
It should say there are 3 different ways of including ancillary data in the.
Actually, I would go back to your term positioning. I think I would say there are 3 different positions for ancillary data, and they could be coded in different ways.
Sure.
Will be, yeah.
If I could find that damn mail. Recipient.
I have a question here. What's an example of implicit ancillary data?
NFFRR. So if there's a bit that says, I want you not to do any more fast readout because you've already done it and bad things can happen, just as one example, it basically says, yeah. So it basically says, I don't have any other data, but there is this action that I want you to do. So that's implicit. Here, in Noah's terms, a node knows what to do just because the indicator is there.
And Kiran,
Is that
it's no data, but it's a misnomer, but it's something we need to talk about. So we
the thing I'm worried about is that if it is implicit, then each node may have its own interpretation of it, that it could process in a way that you do not expect at the system level.
No, but the RFC that defines it will say what's the expected behavior.
So you have, Kiran, what it says is you have this flag in the file style table, and it's specified, it requires you to do this. It's a must.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe to Kiran's point, we should call this no data, because I agree with you, Kiran. By saying implicit, you're saying there is data, but I'm not telling
dummy
you.
example, just some dummy example. If you do push, pop, rewrite, they are implicit actions because you know exactly what you're doing with the table. But I was looking for some new examples that we could include here. And we want to make sure that it will not refer to any other state on the router that could change the implementation or impact the implementation. Unless it is documented, the behavior is documented in the draft.
Yeah, maybe the term implicit is what is confusing you. Okay, we can noodle on that a little bit.
Actually, no data would work.
Yeah.
But it's a no data with the hyphen.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a better term.
Okay. If I'm brave enough to edit this page. Okay,
I think I only sent that mail I was talking about to Turles because I wanted to ask him if he agreed. So no. I don't know where I sent. I tried to find it and send it out again, but it has a text on when you have the word positioning included. So it should be there.
So Noah, I'm editing this in real time. So I'm changing the types of ancillary data to positions of ancillary data.
I want to go back and look at the text I had, just so I can't find it. So I send it out.
Okay. Or you can just
saying
edit
that
this.
okay with you saying, or I want to change something.
Okay, I'll just push this out for now, and then if you want to make changes on top of that, that's fine. Okay, so we have, there's a space here that shouldn't be there.
Oh, yeah. No, I actually sent it to the working group. So you should have it. The mail is called MPLS OpenDT : Auxiliary Data Comments.
Okay.
First one came from Turles, and I responded to it.
Yeah, it looked fine to me.
Yeah, that's what. Oh,
I thought the IETF protocol is that you only send NAX, not X.
not
Sorry.
not when we are.
Looking for consensus.
Yeah, if you're looking for consensus, if you don't say anything, you can come back at the consensus call and say, I didn't agree. So yeah, you need you if you think you should act, please do it.
Okay, I'll go find that email, but if you want to edit this, Noah, go ahead.
Just see. Let's see if we can. You are on Gmail.
I am on Gmail, but I don't know where.
No, but I'm sending it in now.
Oh, okay.
You have it in 10 seconds. You should have it now.
Something that did come, but I'm not going to do what someone did earlier, and I'm going to unshare before I start looking at my email.
Oh, yeah.
I'll do that. Stop sharing. Okay. Well, actually, we're coming to the end of our session.
Yeah.
So I can do it offline, but yeah, okay, here, guys, do it now. Okay, so I've captured most of this. We changed the implicit to no data. Yeah, no, I think the only thing you changed was positioning. Oh, okay, the second line is different. Okay, I'll add that. I'm not gonna edit in real time again, but as well. Sure, remove tentatively, and it says we have tentatively decided to use the term ancillary data.
No, tentatively was in relationship
Until-
to the decision, so you can remove that one.
Okay.
So Kireti, since you did the editing here, please send them at least to Tarek and the working group chairs, but preferably to the working group.
Okay, do you want me to send the new text or a pointer to the document?
Is the document in the wiki, or where is it?
It's in the wiki, yeah.
Yeah. Just send the pointer.
Yeah, okay. Okay, it says, note, there might be a fourth possibility. The ancillary data is carried as part of the packet payload. But for the time being, I'd like to exclude that method. I'm going to remove that and say, I'd like to, but for the time, not for the, yeah. I'm going to change it to.
It's gone.
right, will not be considered further here.
Okay, so we are running up to the end of our time. I think we were much more productive than I thought we would be, so that's good. And everyone, thanks for your help, and see you next week. I will try to come out with the agenda a little bit earlier next time.
Okay. Maybe this 14 function worked well this time.
Okay, yeah, I wait another 10 minutes before I send the next time, and then we'll be even more making
We'll
more
be twice
progress.
as productive.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. I'll see you next week, and then I'm
See you
away
next
for 2 weeks on holiday.
Okay.
Oh, lucky you. Enjoy. Well,
Thank you.
talk to you next week.
Take care.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.